Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. Hi. There is a competitive streak running across the pitch at the moment and I'm not so fond of it. I don't like the smell of it at all, right? A lot of readings about coercion, usurping, mutiny, triangulation, stealing of ideas, third-party situations, etc, etc. It seems to have really amped up recently and I want to address it somehow. Hoping this doesn't set my fire alarm off, by the way. But I also want to sort of do it in a relatively light-hearted way, a way that is self-focused rather than focused on, you know, repercussions for other people, etc. And a way that reminds us of our gifts without a straightforward, let me gas you up and get up your ass kind of a reading. So, this one is going to be Cartomancy rather than Tarot because I want to switch it up. We're also going to use the Fairies Oracle from Brian Froud and Jessica Macbeth, which I know I've mentioned before, as well as the Sacred Archetypes Oracle deck and, trigger warning, my DIY love deck. Now this doesn't mean that it has to be a love situation, it's just a really good deck for exploring interpersonal dynamics. The reason I'm including a trigger warning is because I designed this baby myself to include 50% negative messages, because life is not all, hey, you're going to get together, I want to marry you, etc, etc. Life can sometimes be like, I ghosted you because I'm not interested, or I don't see us being sexually compatible, etc. So, if you're not prepared for those kinds of messages to come up, this is not your reading. Please click off and find something else on my channel. There are many things that you could be into, or you could go for my Marseille minis and get a random reading based on a letter of the alphabet, and that might be just for you. But if you are up for it, it doesn't have to be, like I say, that you're in a love situation. It's just that we're going to look at dynamics between people, hidden communications, etc. through some of the wording. So if it's sexual and you're looking for a work situation, I will turn that language around and we will look at how it fits to the rest of the cards that you're getting. In terms of helpers, we have Jade today because we want to calm and soothe these dynamics instead of adding fire and sort of getting spicy with other people. Even if we are in competition with somebody else, we want to look at it in a peaceful manner, and Jade helps us to do that, as does Peace Lily, which is also present. We've got a wingless Saint Michael just to keep anything dodgy at bay, my usual cleansing bell, and some tourmaline for protection, with a clear quartz just to give it chutzpah, right? So that's the explanation for all of this. Also the Temperance Triangle, which I wear a lot, just to remind us to keep things steady and even, yeah? Because when we're in competition with another person, no matter how trivial the situation, sometimes we can lose ourselves and get a bit, like I said, spicy. We can get a bit defensive. And I don't want to get into like, what is this other person doing? What's their karma? They're a shithead, blah, blah, blah. Even though we've had things come up in readings recently, like the most recent, I think, is the Vine portion, for those of you who picked that pile in H is 4 in the Marseilles. I kind of don't want to get into the negs, right? We don't need to speak to Negascott. We're looking at what it is that we have as assets within this particular competition, how it is that we can win, and indeed why it's come up in the fucking first place. So, if that sounds groovy, you can pick between Bob Ross playing cards, the Maxfield Parrish, I think the name is. I hope I'm getting that artist name right. Those playing cards, the Jim Henson Labyrinth and Dark Crystal combined deck, or a Mandalorian deck. This is actually not as visually Mandalorian focused as it seems. There's a lot of just straight playing cards, but there are some court cards which are pretty fun. And I will read it with Star Wars in mind, so if that's for you, then pick that pile. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. I should say that throughout this, Bjork's discography will be playing in the background, just because I need something to help me focus and drown out any extraneous noise, but also because Bjork is someone who's receiving transmissions that not all of us can tune into, right? She's kind of a oracular totem, even before her film roles took her that way, right? So no copyright infringement meant. Hopefully you won't be able to hear all of it anyway, but it's just to get into the vibe, I guess. And if you do like Bjork, or you like what you're hearing and you're not into her, get stuck in, go on. Right. Okay, without further ado, I will meet you at your pile with Bob Ross, pile 1. Pile 1. I dare say if you're not a care worker, you're not in the police, you're not SEN, you're not nurturing or protecting in some capacity, this pile is probably not for you. This is very much an opposition. I don't want to say opposition because it's like a working or a personal relationship with somebody who is perceived to be compassionate to the extent that you also are, right? And this is very directly dealing with other people. So it could be that if it's a romantic situation, like the thing that irks you about this third party is that they are also like publicly kind and giving, and that's what has drawn your desired person to them, but you feel that you have those qualities. If it's a work thing, then like I say, I think you're in some kind of you're in the field where you would be caring for somebody, you would be being the Samaritan, possibly being the liberator for someone. Working with addicts is coming up strongly as well, or at least those who are in some way in need. So my teachers, this could be you as well, it all depends really. And if it's not love or work and this is interpersonal, I think it might be a family member, and I think it might be somebody with a strong feminine energy or female identifying who is very nurturing, very caring, loves and wants to protect you, but actually you feel is competition for you at a deep level in terms of you being able to demonstrate that you can protect yourself and other people. So if none of that hits home, it's not for you. But if I've piqued your interest so far, then we're going to start with reading from the book, which I never do, but this is a very good book because we're using the Fairies Oracle, the Brian Froud thing. And you got Lice of the Shadows, or Lice of the Shadows. I'm going to call it Lice for now. Healing the shadows, addictions, bondage and self-esteem. Liz works hard. She has a very tough job to do. She puts a great deal of tough love into it. She prowls the night streets looking for those in need of her help and finds far too many of them. Liz is the patron fairy of social workers, therapists, healers and all others who try to help alcoholics and drug addicts and other souls caught in the darkness of their own inner shadows, or who were abused by those who should have protected them. However, she doesn't sit in an office somewhere. She's out there on the dark and dangerous streets, lending a healing hand here, soothing an anguished brow there, whispering comfort and encouragement into a lonely ear, and bringing a touch of hopeful rainbow light into the deepest shadows, including those in darkened human hearts. Like card 30, much of her work flows through the hearts and then the hands and words of humans who make themselves available for such work. Side note, you could be a tarot reader. She inspires souls to connect with one another in a healing way. Her speciality is help for the hopeless, for the ones that most everyone else, including themselves, has given up on. The street people, the lost children of our society, those who've fallen through the cracks and rips in our feeble societal safety nets. She often works through human hands, and she may call upon you for help in her work. Out of curiosity, I asked her why she chose to have her card in this particular group of fairies instead of the one before, where I might have expected her to be more at home. She shrugged, gave a cheeky grin, and said, "These guys know where to find the best nectar and nuts." Even though she has wings, she's very down to earth and practical. So again, we're echoing this theme of working or being in a practical field where we're helping other people in down-to-earth pentacles kind of ways, which is reflected in your cards because you've got a lot of diamonds, which is the pentacles equivalency. Starter reading. Ultimately, she's trying to help people develop true self-respect and self-esteem, but she has to start much further down the scale of idealism than that. The song on currently is "There's More to Life Than This." That might be relevant. She tries to inspire practical help for those who need it most. She's the inspiration for the first wobbly steps taken by a damaged soul towards healing. Her presence in a reading indicates that something has seemed lost and fixed in that loss, which is now open to healing. Someone's ready to begin and help the climb out of the inner mire. There is hope here and a need for loving kindness tempered by practicality. If you call upon Liz for assistance in helping another, she will always give it, often by encouraging that person to be receptive and others to also be helpful. She always has time to support those who have time for others. Right. Let's get real, pile one. This is you. This is a description of what you do for other people. It's also a description of the person that you feel that you're directly in competition with. It's also the medicine you need. And before we get into why this happened, I dare say that it happened because you're triggered by it, because you want to be the protector, but also deep down, this is because of a need to be protected. These two cards in the middle are kind of neither person's voice if you're in direct competition. This is just the vibe. So I need you to protect me, please, which is what people are saying to both of you, but also what you are deep down saying to the universe, right? And if you want me to step up, you need to act like you expect good behaviour. So there's a thing here as well with this other person, that if you're interpreting their behaviour as a slight to you, what were you expecting them to do? What is your estimation of how people react in these kinds of situations? What indeed is your framework, your model, your belief surrounding competition as a thing, or surrounding whether you can coexist with someone who's very similar to you and not be in competition or to be in competition, right? So there's a sense that what's come about here is partly due to your expectation of other people. There's also a sense, which comes through in some of your cards as well, that the people that you are caring for in your work or in whatever it is are sometimes disappointing you. This is why I'm getting a feeling of addicts. It's like you help people and then they go away and they don't take your advice or they don't keep up with their own situation, and they kind of return to you having almost let you down in some way. But that's not really a fair estimation of where they're at, because for you to be helping them out, you're in an advantageous position. So if they go away and they haven't done their homework or they haven't used what you gave them to sort their own circumstances out, that's not really fully on them. Like, it's a shame, and yeah, they possibly could have done more, but there's a thing pointed out to you here that I need to pass on, that like, if you're in a position to help people out, it's because you have privilege, it's because you have advantage. And when people don't always act the way that you want them to act, it's sometimes because they don't have these same advantages as you. And despite the fact that I'm sure you're reminded of the advantages you have through your work or whatever this is, I think you can sometimes forget that other people don't have what you have. The song being Like Someone in Love is making me think that you perhaps grew up with or are currently surrounded by more of a loving environment than whoever it is that you would compete with, whether it is a specific person, which I am getting for this, or whether it's just that you're going for a job, which, you know, there is other competition within that. Something that's really popping off, and I need to say it now before I forget because we'll get into the rest of it, is that if you didn't watch H's for In My Mini Marseille, this is not me self-promoting, I think you need to watch pile 2, I think. Whichever one in the spoiler comment was H is for humanitarian, right? Because it looks at your relationship to giving, to charity, to donation, in light or in context of the groups that you're in, the people that surround you, the belief system that you have about receiving, and whether or not your next step should be to give or to receive, and who to. I really feel like this is, it's almost like you've come from that and then you've immediately watched this. So comment down below if that is you. I'd be interested to see it happen. But if not, I just think that, like, as a supplement to what we're going to cover, if you feel you want to dive into it deeper and you don't want to pay for a reading, H is for humanitarian is your bag, right? Okay, so something shadowy is going on here that I need to mention. And it's at your end, surprisingly. No matter how sort of conflicted this competition with another person is, what I'm getting is that there is good and bad on both sides, shall we say. So for those of you who this is a group, just suspend yourself for this few seconds while I go over it. But if it's a person, and I strongly feel that it's a family member or someone who's like family, if that's the case, your attitude is that you're almost willing to cheat within your job or within your role as caregiver, nurturer, protector, to be on a level with this person, to interact with them, or to be seen as their equal if you're not really a fan of them, but you want the clout that they have. It's not like this is a mega shadowy reading, so I'm not going to be coming for you and attacking you in the rest of it. But I do think that it's worth a mention that there is some part of you in the Samaritan that's in this shadow aspect, exacting appreciation and recognition for the help that you offer. Whether it's a conscious motivation or not, part of the reason that you care for other people is that people treat you better when you do. And this may go down to this kind of root concern of, I feel I need to be protected because I'm in an unsafe world. It may not even be a belief that you consciously acknowledge, but you might have like root chakra issues going on if that's something you vibe with. You might have problems with your downstairs mix-up in a medical sense, or problems with, shall we say, getting rid of waste. It's not going to be for all of you, but if you do, or if you have recently, that's your sort of indication that this is to do with this core belief that the world is something you need protecting from, and that the only way to gain recognition from other people is to protect others, to help them along where perhaps you didn't receive help, or to just sort of give your advantage away in order to remain safe and in order to keep it in a kind of strange Four of Pentacles dynamic. So let's look at the light attributes on this side. We do have Samaritans, so it refines your capacity to help those you would prefer to ignore. Prefer to ignore is an interesting part of the phrase when we've had this thing about expecting good behaviour from others. So I get the sense that if this is a job, it's something that stresses you out quite a fucking bit, right? It depletes you. Whether or not it's an industry that you love, that you got into vocationally, I sense that it takes it out of you to the point where you just want people to sort themselves out a little bit so that your work is not as hard. If it's not work, if we're talking about a relationship, I suspect that you want to help out the person that you're sort of wanting to be involved with, if this is third party, but you also want them to step up. You want to be able to expect that they will. And so far, I'm getting that they haven't, right? In whatever way, whether it's that you're always the person to start a conversation, or whether it's that you've given more financially or time-wise or something like that, this connection is not feeling very equal right now, and it's getting you fucking frustrated. But you still have this Samaritan quality where you can offer love to this other person, offer help to this other person. And indeed, with the message from the other camp, this is both the person who is a threat to you and the person that you're after, saying, I love you so much. I have so much respect for you. I see how much you give to this, how much you care for others, right? They do acknowledge this. If you think that they reckon it's missing and they're only seeing it in a third party figure, I'm here to tell you that that's not true. They see that both of you do this. It's just that the way in which the other person does it is vibing for them at the moment. So looking at this other person, or at the other group that might be a competition, or at the family member you're in competition with, or the friend that you've got a rivalry with, in the light, they're freeing themselves and others from outmoded beliefs and releasing negative thought patterns. And in the shadow, which is what you're more likely to have experienced, they're imposing their own tyranny over those they claim to liberate and ignoring legitimate constraints. So in a working relationship, this looks like somebody bossing other staff around or taking liberties with students, patients, residents, whatever it is, right? If this is more of like an interpersonal, non-love, non-work thing, because this is a general reading and you have to, give me a bit of leeway to read for all kinds of people who will be viewing it. This is the imposition of their tyranny over you feel. Them setting rules in order to care for and protect other people, which you feel are unreasonable, or them indeed setting the parameters within which you can offer the caregiver vibe, because that is their comfortable archetype, that is their usual role. So it may be that you're kind of stood in somebody's shadow, and that shadow is exhibiting the boundaries within which you can operate for other people, within which you can be a Samaritan. Indeed, within which you can protect and care for yourself as well, because the Samaritan is not just for others. You can't be a Samaritan without a good deal of self-care. So whoever this person is, or whatever group this is, they're kind of setting the rules for how you operate in a way that is bringing resentment to the fore from your camp, right? And we'll look at why that is in a bit, but first up, I want to talk a little bit more about the situation just to make sure you're in the right place, and or to kind of get you cemented in thinking about it and experiencing their energies so that we can heal and transmute. So we've got a 5 of clubs, a 7 of pentacles, and a Queen of clubs. Let's go through the statements that Bob is making to us first, because he's a good egg and it's good to hear some positive shit. So he's saying you can move mountains, rivers, trees. You can determine what your world is like. Note that I'm talking about paradigms and worldviews in terms of self-protection and protection of others from themselves or from the world at large. There's nothing wrong with having a tree as a friend. So you might be seen as quite eccentric within this dynamic or workplace or whatever. That is to your benefit if this is coming up for you from Bob now. It's not in the detrimental sections of the reading, so take it as a positive, take it as a unique gift, something that already is differentiating you from whoever or whatever you feel in competition with. Talent is pursued interest. Anything you're willing to practice, you can do. So there is a sense of getting into this Samaritan energy, really digging your heels into it, or diving into the waters of it, I'm compelled to say, because of the painting on the card. It's something that you can always get better at, you can always improve on, you can always do further. And that's not to say that you need improvement. It's just to say that if you're feeling discombobulated within that role, or you're feeling in somebody else's shadow, or like you can't do your job because of the way that somebody else is doing theirs, this is something that you can get back into for yourself. You can get better with, get more in the mode of, and hopefully this reading will help you to do that, right? So, looking at just the card meanings isolated from those messages, we've got a conflict happening, which is kind of petty, kind of down to earth. When we're doing Cartomancy, we don't take majors, so we're talking about squabbling, bickering, backbiting within a group, perhaps just sort of feeling a conflict but not really saying much about it, or maybe having instances where you think of the thing you wish you'd said afterwards. I can't remember what the word is for that. Comment down below. I know it's a French word. But it's that kind of shit, right? And then with this 7 of pentacles or diamonds, we've got a period of reflection, of gratitude, interestingly. So maybe part of getting back into this caregiving mode is saying thank you for the assets that you can acknowledge you do have that have maybe been overshadowed by this situation in general. Getting into gratefulness, into scripting, or just into saying, you know what, I am cut out for this. I am really good at it. I have helped a lot of people. I can help myself. I am protected, I am loved, and these are all the reasons why, and I'm going to just kind of dwell on them for a minute, right? So there's taking stock in terms of this situation, which we're doing now, and that's very obviously a 7th thing, but there's also taking stock in terms of being grateful for it and getting back into the light energy from the shadow. Remember, you had a fairy of the shadows, so this is a shadow work reading, but the way that you can go through it can also be positive. If it's feeling heavy, you can get into the energy of this is what I brought to it, and indeed this is what I will bring one day, which is the song that's on at the moment, so I have to point it out. So, Queen of Pentacles, this is somebody who's very abundant. This is someone who's already gotten into that mindset. Somebody who is perhaps the queen of a particular domain, whether that's you or the person that you're dealing with, any gender, it's just the vibe. And somebody who is comfortable in that role, who is very down to earth and practical, as we spoke about in your kind of mini fairy reading. Someone who can act for the benefit of other people without losing anything themselves. And this is why I'm pointing you to that H is for humanitarian, right? Because it's very much about operating under a zero-sum paradigm, where if you give to other people, you will not have, you will be in lack, you will lose. And this is something I want to like shove you away from a little bit with this reading. The world in tarot and in esoteric stuff does not work like that. Everything, love, money, general energy is a flow. By giving to another person, you do not lose out and never gain again unless you take it, right? It's not this like rich taking from the poor kind of a paradigm. It's not that if you indulge in something, you're fucking somebody else over. And I get the sense that the need for protection in your mind is because of a belief about that, possibly a belief stemming from childhood. For a tiny minority of you, this liberator figure that I described as a parent is also somebody who simultaneously took from you. And you're in a very confusing, gaslit kind of a dynamic where you don't understand how they can be the liberator and Samaritan for others, when for you they made you feel very unstable, unsafe, perhaps not protected with the things that they were saying and doing because they were threatened by you, because you are kind, right? You might have like an empath thing going on, which attracts personalities that are a little bit shady about that, a little bit wanting to imitate it and take from it at the same time. So that's coming into play as well. And if it's not parental or it's not like a direct empath dynamic, then just take it sort of as it resonates with whatever your situation is. But there's a sense of like, I feel unprotected because other people are protecting each other, or I feel like I want to help people because no one helps me, and if I don't give, I won't receive. So do watch that H is for reading, please. Okay, getting on to assets, advantages, differences, unique characteristics about you that you are aware of, right? We've got a 3 of Pentacles, a 10 of Pentacles, and an Ace of Clubs. And the statements are, isn't that fantastic? Aren't you fantastic? I knew you could do it. So there's a sense of achievement here. You do know that you've done well within your particular domain. Whether or not that is related to this Samaritan thing, I sense achievement has been a part of your life recently, and you're proud of yourself, and rightly so, right? I really believe if you practice enough, you could paint the Mona Lisa with a 2-inch brush. So, excuse me, hiccups. You are very resourceful, right? Aeroplane is playing when I was hiccuping, so for some of you, you fly for work, or you work in lots of different areas, and that's the thing of like being resourceful in new places or in new languages. There may be a component for your work, even if you do it in one place, where you're learning languages for other people in order to help them out. You're working with a particular section of the immigrant community or something like that. Maybe work with refugees, just for some of you, but it is hitting out. So yeah, there is this resourcefulness. You can take a 2-inch brush and paint the Mona Lisa, or you can take a tiny amount of resources and money and fundraise for a cause, or help out a bunch of homeless people, or, you know, just do something along those kinds of lines. And again, if you're not in this identity fully, excuse me for my squeaky chair, if you're not somebody who's in a humanitarian work mode, This could be that you're just known within a third-party relationship energy for being somebody who's always kind, who's always there for other people, and who is quite resourceful in the manner in which they do that. Even if it's just like pulling ideas out of the air and talking about stuff really well. Which again, is why I say some of you are tarot readers, spiritual workers. You might identify as a light worker, although I think the term's a bit problematic. But yeah, it's that sense of like, you can pull a solution for somebody's life issues out of your ass if you need to. And it won't just be confirmation bias, it will be genuinely what they need, right? And then I look forward to seeing you again. Happy painting. God bless, my friend. People do look forward to seeing you, working with you. That includes whoever it is that you're wanting to get the attention of, be that professional or romantic attention. And it includes the people that you do your work for and with, right? Clients, people who come to your shelter, whatever that may be. It can be like your own kids. If this is a family dynamic and you're just a really good parent, or you take care of siblings really well, whoever those people are, even pets, right? They love to see you. They're dying to see you. So it's this thing of, you're very appreciated wherever you go. And I do think you acknowledge that, because this is in the conscious gifts portion. So with a 3 of Pentacles, a 10 of Pentacles, and an Ace of Clubs, we've got a person who's very good at collaboration, good at group work, possibly better at group work than this other person that you feel in competition with. Possibly somebody who can collaborate in a way that is very adaptive, resourceful, quick thinking, highly creative. And that might not be this other person or group's forte. So that's something you can use for your advantage if you do want to compete with them in the sense of like getting a position, you know, whether that's securing a partner or a job or something like that. I'm not saying like outdo somebody out of a situation. I'm just saying that if you want to appear at your best, then this is a quality that you could draw upon within yourself. And that kind of goes for all of the things that I'm about to mention. With the 10 of Pentacles, I feel you've been doing this for a long time. You may be somebody who was born a caregiver, who played the nurturing figure in your Let's Pretend and kind of just carried that on into school, into, you know, your late teens, early 20s and beyond, where that is your role, that is where you are most comfortable. It's not necessarily something you're tired of. It could be, you could be exhausted. We mentioned that before. But it's definitely where you're most comfortable. And I get the feeling, if this is another person we're talking about, they are very kind, they are a liberator, they do free others from negativity and outmoded stuff. But that's perhaps a new mode for them. It's a new role, it's something they've just stepped up into. Whereas for you, it's like you came out of the fucking womb that way, right? you popped out and then you were going, oh, are you all right? Can I do anything to help? And that help was immediately effective, no matter how young you were, right? It's just something that you are. You vibe with being a nurturer. You may have got my pile, I can't remember whether it's 5 or 6, but one of the piles in my Your Future Spouse, What You Fucking Hate About Them reading, where we looked at like stuff that niggles you with a partner. You may have been my like from birth caregiver there as well, in which case hi and thank you for watching a couple of readings of mine. But yeah, there is this sense that you're comfortable. People look forward to seeing you, as we've spoken about, but that's partly because this is within your realm of expertise, right? If there is this sense of like cheating within the job, cutting corners, maybe faking being caregiving when you're not feeling it on that day, maybe saying things that are a bit disingenuous in order to make people feel safe, that's not something that comes across to other people, and instead they see you as the expert. So that is something that you can play upon. If this is a professional setting where you're in like a spiritual marketplace or something similar, I would really push the fact that you've been doing this for a long time. If you're worried about the competition, or indeed if you've got like a copycat or something else worrying along those lines, like we mentioned in the intro, sometimes the best way to get someone to buzz off is not to deal with their energy directly, but just to play up your experience and expertise to the point where other people figure out that you're the better option to come to, right? And this is, you know, it might sound like a shadow thing, but it is coming up that, like, if you've got all that experience, if you've been there a long time, if you've always been the Samaritan figure, then, you know, toot your own horn a little bit more, maybe. I'm not saying shout and brag about it, but definitely make it clear to people coming into your energy that that is something you can offer because you've been doing this a while, right? Try not to get into arrogance with that, because, like I say, this is a bit of a reading. There's some stuff going on with you at the moment that isn't with everybody's best interests at heart. But at the same time, if you want to genuinely speak about what you're qualified to do, you are very much qualified for this, right? And in the same way, within a relationship, yes, you would absolutely be a nurturing, caring partner. Or within a family dynamic, you would make a fucking awesome parent, dude. Like, this is something you are definitely cut out for, whether or not you've been told otherwise. So bear that in mind and bring it, you know, sort of consciously into your next move. Then with the Ace of Clubs, we've got somebody who's very creative, very upfront, able to speak their piece very well. It's interesting that we've got that with the King of Clubs and the Jack of Clubs, meaning the King and Knight of Wands energy, respectively, in your sort of reason why stuff's happened later on. So it is like this forthright energy, a big reason that this dynamic has even irked you in the first place, or that you didn't get the job this time round, or whatever it is to get you into that upfront energy where you're just laying your cards on the table, sometimes literally, and saying, hey, here I am, this is my level of expertise, this is what I can provide for you, I'm very keen to work in a group to do that, and I have good feedback, so here it is. That's something else, actually. If you've got good reviews from people, or people that will vouch for you in terms of the way that you've cared for them, helped them out of addictions, helped them move on to a different place or a different life, or help them to understand a certain concept if you're in teaching or something, then absolutely that is one of the assets that you can play up and are encouraged to. So moving on to what makes you different in a less conscious sense, or a sense that you might not be willing to accept as sort of well just for the moment. Actually, I'm going to move over to the other side of the chair for this. Excuse me. So we're going to look at these sort of top three here. And we've got the Eight of Pentacles, the Ten of Cups, and the King of Cups. And we've got the statements, trees cover up a multitude of sins. You really can learn to be creative as you paint. It's like anything else, it takes a little practice. And you have unlimited power here. You can do that. You can do anything on this canvas, anything. Wherever I'm talking about Bob Ross's words of wisdom, I'm talking about the feel of the thing, not specifically about painting and art. Hopefully you'll have gotten understood that by now. But just for anybody, if you're not clear, this isn't like just for my artists and people who work for other people in that capacity. Excuse me, I'm just looking for my remote because my burner's switched off and it's gone completely. So you might have lost something recently that is kind of linked to this connection. That's just like an extra shout out for some of you. Also, I'm sorry if the camera tilted when I moved. Back to it, come on, concentrate, focus. Maybe this has been taking your focus off the more important things, right? This whole dynamic, and that's why you're here. So, covering up a multitude of sins. I don't want to say that you can cover your tracks, because then that's tapping into this shady energy we're trying to get away from. But what I will say is that where you may have fucked up in the past, like I say, the impression that people have of you over here and here is that you're still very qualified, you're still very good at your stuff, you're still the person to come to about whatever it is that they need help with. And in a way you have covered yourself there. So that is something that you're able to do if needs be. Again, I wouldn't encourage doing intentionally shifty stuff, or pulling the wool over someone's eyes, or trying to sort of be aggressively competitive with another person because you are able to cover it up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if accidents happen, you're very good at moving on quite swiftly, and that is not something shared by your immediate competition. They would not be as good at skipping from one thing to the next thing if they'd, in a practical or in an interpersonal sense, sort of spilled the tea or dropped the thing they were meant to be carrying or fucked up on a particular document or whatever it is. With You Can Learn to Be Creative as You Paint, again, it's this reference to you can always develop this practice of giving, of generosity, of love further. You will be like, I think part of your life's mission is like generosity and giving and expressing love in a way that is free of shadiness, that is free of common societal notions about what love is, right? Which is a very big mission. You're quite an important soul here. And if that, you know, if you don't vibe with stuff like that, if you don't believe in souls, then just take it as one of the really important ways that you're going to express yourself in your lifetime and sort of have a legacy to other people is expressing ways that they can be generous that they hadn't thought of before, ways that they can love each other which didn't occur to them. And that's a really beautiful message, right? And that's why when we look at what could have been a shady communication from this competition to you, what we've actually got is, I love you so much. Dude, everybody fucking adores you. The people you're helping, the person you see yourself as in competition with, the person you're interested in, if that's applicable. Like, everybody around you just thinks you're rad. And it's time to bring that to consciousness and to see why that is. And to take the love that they've maybe been low-key expressing to you, transmute it and express it to others. The anchor song has just come on, and I feel like you're almost an anchor for other people, where they can see the expression of love and kindness in your deeds, anchor into it to get themselves out of, Brain said soggy energy, but like downtrodden, crappy, old patterns and outmoded things. And they can look at your example and use it to be beautiful, to be caring with the people in their life, to care for themselves more adequately, to offer love to another person when inspired by the love that you give. Again, it's really fucking beautiful message. I just wish that you'd see it a little more, because this is in the what you don't know portion, right? And then with the unlimited power to do that and do anything on this canvas, when we speak about the canvas more broadly in Bob Ross's spiritual input, we're speaking about your life, right? We're speaking about your mission, your spirituality, what it is that you make in this world. And to tell you that you have unlimited power in a reading which is about love, caring, and indeed companionship for other people, is to say that once you break through this paradigm of needing protection and of other people not stepping up to the plate for you, you kind of have unlimited capacity to be this loving, beautiful, kind energy for everybody else. I'm thinking, I'd be interested if you picked the Henson deck as well, because I know some of you are two-pile people. But I'm thinking of the thought lion in Jim Henson's Storyteller, that is this magical donor figure that comes in like a fairy godmother for people and just allows them to see the goodness in the world and the magic in the universe. And that is your role, right? As much as there's been some difficult stuff we've had to acknowledge, overwhelmingly you are a good person who spreads that goodness to everyone around you, and this is the asset you're not seeing. In pitting yourself against another person or another group, you are missing the fact that you are just this like emissary of love. I'm sort of invited to a bit of silence while you sink that in, right? Love is your home. Love is where you're staying, right? Okay, let's move on from that. Now you've partially absorbed that, and I hope that it's made you feel the little bit of something lovely that I just felt. It got a little bit dusty in here for a second. So we've got an 8 of Pentacles, which is about this gradual mastery of a skill. Sorry, I'm not pointing to things with my hands. This is like a very, for those of you in a 3D, 5D paradigm, this is like a very 5D-ish energy. This is like you bringing into your earthly life in a very Queen of Pentacles way what it is that you were thinking and dreaming and daydreaming about. But anyway, so integrating my hands again, getting back into Pentacles. The 8 is about gradual mastery of a skill. It's about working hard in little increments to create something which is so much broader than you. It would not surprise me if some of the people watching this were philanthropists in a very big way, a very impactful, multinational even way. Yeah, the music sort of got a bit more sweeping, a bit more layered as I said that, and I was picturing cities, because I always do with this song, or indeed this album, to be honest. It makes me think of like the scenes in oh god, I can't think of the bloody film, but it's soundtracked by Philip Glass, and I'll pop it below when I think of the movie. But it's a movie about the earth and humanity on the earth, and there are scenes with people buzzing around cities looking like hives of bees or ants or something. And it's that busyness, it's that is the realm of your impact, that is the sphere of influence for you. You're radiating this love out, and it's actually affecting entire cities of people in kind of secondhand ways that you're not seeing, which is why this is an unconscious energy. Yes, you know you can build the skills. We know from that 10 of Pentacles that you're established. But what you don't see is how the tiny things that you're doing, or what you feel is tiny, are impactful for a great deal of people through a ripple effect that you can't directly experience. Then with the 10 of Pentacles, this is like the most that you can accumulate in the sense of emotion, a familial vibe, a loving vibe. This is you being like the pinnacle of family for other people. Whether or not you identify as being in a family yourself, or maybe you want that with somebody involved in this, there is a sense that it is, firstly, it's very attainable for you, don't doubt it. But also there's this like, whoever you're working with, they see you as an extra parent, as an extra bit of love. And actually we're coming into King of Cups. So I'm going to integrate these two, right? This is fatherly energy. If you had a lack of fatherhood in your childhood, or a father figure who was a little bit complicated, corrupt in his relationship to you, just know that the fatherly protective energy that you inhabit for other people, any gender, by the way, you don't have to identify as masculine for this to be true, but the way that you keep other people safe, God, it's making me cry. Sorry. The way that you keep other people safe is astonishing. And you need to bring that into your awareness, because I was just fucking flooded with it. It's beautiful. It may be that if you've had a negative association with fathers or with men or anything like that, even with like masculine professional figures that have disappointed you in some way, that I'm saying this and you're like, but that I can't be that because I never had that. Or there's like resentment that you never had that. I need you to protect me. Where are you, daddy? Right? Not all of you. Some of you will have had great dads and it's not relevant. But for many of you, the fact that you were missing out on this stuff enables you to give it to other people now in a way that is so much more insightful, for almost the privilege of having had to make it up and to figure out what it was that you were lacking there, what it was that you were missing in terms of this yang protective energy, and to substitute that, right? It's almost as if like, yes, you weren't protected and that was unjust, and that helped you to be the protector for other people. Sorry. Jesus. I'm not normally like this in readings, guys, but it's just like, I wish that you saw this in yourself more. I wish that you understood that you are this, like, I'm getting this image of like a sheltering tree and all of these people sat underneath it feeling really thankful for you, but you're just doing tree bullshit. You don't even see how protective you are. You're just being a tree and you're like concerned with the wind or the weather or whatever it is that trees think about. And meanwhile, you provide this shelter for others. weirdly, I'm hearing the phrase tax shelter. So for some of you, you are like a financial advisor or protector for other people. And the message is that even if it's not like a typical caregiver role, you're doing that very well. But anyway, that just came in from nowhere. But yeah, you have unlimited power to continue being this tree of fucking life. Some of you have got big Odin vibes, or you've been working with Odin and Yggdrasil and all that great stuff. There is this sense of fatherliness, and I want you to tap into it. You know what as well? God, it's making me emotional again. Fuck. Sorry, like I say, I never do this, although I do have a stellium in Cancer, so when I feel the energy, I can be really affected by it, and I do apologise, but breathe, double L, calm down. You may have picked this Bob Ross deck because Bob Ross as an individual was this for other people, right? He sheltered people, he inspired people, he took the pain of his experiences, his lack of protection in the world, the horrible things that happen in wartime, and he transmuted them into his love for painting and his demonstration for other people that they can take refuge and solace in painting as a discipline, and or that they can be imperfect and that they can understand themselves in creative and trusting ways. Whether or not you see him as an overtly protective figure, this is part of what I'm talking about, because you help people to feel safe, to express themselves, or just to do something for fun, or to see things as happy little trees, happy little animals, to connect with nature, to connect with themselves in a way where, without their knowledge, you're relieving the pressure of everyday life or the imposed pressure that they've put on themselves. If you do work with addicts, it's almost like you're taking away the need for their fix by providing them with a safe place that they can just experience what it is that they're feeling and doing and going through. And for some of you, you work with the homeless and you give them a home in every sense. You give them a place to be. Again, if this isn't vibing with you and you've not got a career in those things, and this is just like a third party or a friendship or a family thing, I don't want you to feel that what I'm communicating is like, oh, well, what I do is not enough in comparison to that. Because just by being yourself, you're giving off this same vibe, right? You are still the Samaritan. You don't have to be in a soup kitchen. You don't have to be giving someone a ride to somewhere where they're out in the cold. You can just inhabit your own energy, and that, for some of you, is enough for other people to feel protected, safe, and inspired, which, again, ironically, I feel are the emotions that you most wish that you would have now, or that you did have before. Your lack was your gift. And I know that that's really fucking difficult and horrible to hear, and that you might have resentment around it. But I'm just going to say that from personal experience, sometimes you have to be treated very badly for a very long time to realise what it is that other people need and be able to give that to them. And in your case, I'm not saying that it was okay that you went without in whatever way, or that you felt unsafe in whatever way. But I am saying that you are this fucking daddy tree for everybody. You are this Bob Ross vibe. And what's leaping out to me is that a liberator is not fully this energy, right? It's a good energy. They're doing good work. I don't think they're doing it for shady reasons. I don't think they are a tyrant, even when they are sometimes tyrannical. But whoever or whatever you're in direct competition with, they can free other people from negativity, but they can't provide the multifaceted fucking rainbow of stuff that you can bring to people's lives. Some of you are working for the LGBT community as well, as I say that. But yeah, it is astonishing what you've done and what you can do. And that's the bit you're not seeing, and that you need to pull into your grounded reality. And I think once you're in touch with that, it's not even just that you'll outdo the competition, it's that you won't give a shit anymore about competition. Because when somebody's in their mission and in their power, trade secret, they don't care, right? Haters don't bother you anymore. You just sort of look at them and go, oh, it's a shame you're feeling that insecure. And you might protect your energy, you might block them, or you might report something, or, you know, you might see a person less, or whatever it is. But you're not like ruffled by it in the same way, because you know that whatever they're projecting towards you is more about them. It's not true. And I do get this sense that like once you fucking tap into this, you won't give a shit whether they're as good at liberating others as you are, or whether they're being tyrannical at work, or whether you would prefer to do something that's similar to them, and then meaning that you can't always do it. You'll just be in your own zone. And if you can't perform in that dynamic alongside this person or in this place or whatever, you'll just find something else, because you'll be like tapped in. Something will make itself available to you where you can best express this beautiful energy that you carry. Excuse me, I need to sort my face out from the crying fit. There we go, right, that's a little bit better. Okay, so why did this happen? We've covered it a little bit, but let's look at it in cards. We've got a King of Clubs, a Jack of Clubs, as I said, a Knight of Wands energy, and a Queen of Hearts, which I think is very much your vibe. Yes, you're the father, you're also the mother. And again, self-mothering may come into it if this is a dynamic with a mother figure, or self-fathering if it's a father figure. But I think you need to understand overall that you are what you think you lack. And that it is okay to provide it for yourself. It doesn't mean, oh man, this is like a whole other reading. And comment down below if you'd like me to do this, because I was listening to the 50th Law recently and thinking I need to do some readings on like what it is to be solitary in the light and not be afraid of that. But there's a sense with you that like, if I say you're capable of doing all of this on your own and being everything you seek for yourself, there's a part of you, just like there used to be a part of me, that says, fucking hell, so I'm going to be alone forever. So I'm never going to be protected by someone else. So I'm never just going to have it easy and let somebody else be able to take over because they can't do the job the way that I can do the job. Like, I'm always going to have to be self-reliant, is this like, it's the shadow perception of that energy. And what I want to instead say about being solitary for you, or working in a solitary fashion, or just not giving as much of a fuck about other people's opinions, even professionally, is that being able to protect yourself doesn't mean that no protection from other people will come in for you. It's actually quite the opposite. Once you start to be able to do this stuff completely for yourself, you draw to you your hopes and dreams and the stuff that you were requiring, because you're no longer blocked in your communications with other people. So if you've been looking for a relationship where you wanted somebody to be like a bit nurturing and motherly with you, or a bit protective and fatherly with you in a way that you feel a real lack of, or if you just want somebody to watch your ass and look out for you, I'm hearing watch your ass in a very specific way. For some of you, the person you're interested in loves your butt, right? Small message, let's move on. But if you've been wanting somebody to sweep in and say, hey, the world is a safe place, let me show you that you can just rest now, let me show you that you can just paint, or whatever it is, then know that being that for yourself and providing the sanctuary for yourself that you have provided for others thus far is the missing ingredient to attracting that person. Indeed, if you are in a third party situation and you're concerned with whoever this is, I reckon if you fucking forget them altogether and concentrate on protecting yourself and being in your integrity, where you're not willing to cheat regarding a situation, you're not willing to be false about the extent to which you have energy to care for others, etc., then that person that is like your sort of counterpart in this triangle will either vanish and someone better will turn up, or they will come in for you fucking fast, having dropped the liberator figure, right? Just for some, it is a general reading, but if it's a romance one, that is the missing ingredient of what you need to do. Either way, there is this mixture of compassion and swiftness here, also sureness, passion for what you do, willingness to be spontaneous with both of these, willingness to trust in yourself to the extent that you can be a little bit more creative and impulsive and just kind of run along with that energy instead of being stalled by what other people are up to or whether or not the competition for the job is better than you. Like, you need to step into an energy where that's just not a concern of yours. Again, like I say, once you're in the mode of your purpose, and I do purpose readings, link down below if you're interested, I don't think that what other people are dealing with, or even what modern, I'm seeing the modern things as the next track, right? It's the modern world's concerns will no longer be your concerns because you'll just be super laser focused on what it is that you're meant to do about this next. And I think things will become just easier for you. But I think the willingness to step into that energy is not just like, yeah, that sounds good, that's what I need, which I'm getting from you. Like, if you've come this far in the reading, you're going, yeah, I want that vibe, fuck. And treat yourself to some chocolate if that's you. And if you're not, you know, diabetic or anything, that's just an additional message, like, have the chocolate. But yeah, it's this thing of like, it's not just something you want, it's something that will come without you trying as soon as you acknowledge these strengths and you integrate them together with more challenging idea because you're ready for it, the idea that you are the people that you see show up in your life. What does that mean? So whatever this person has been challenging you with, or whatever you feel you lack that they have, is an unacknowledged part of you. They are your mirror. Again, down below, I do something called a mirrored soul reading, where you can look at twin flame dynamics or just competition or 12th house type dynamics, tricky situations with another person, and see where you mirror them and vice versa and what it is you have to learn from it. So that might be for you. I'm also going to do a try before you buy the basic tier for that reading soon. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't, if you don't want to pay for that reading, but you want, you know, a similar pick-a-pile on it. But anyway, enough of the free and paid content. The point is, I feel that in some way this is a mirror dynamic, that some of the things that you're afraid you don't have that this person does are actually just untapped things that you can get into the mode of now. And some of the things that like you feel most intimidated by within them are actually related to core issues that would be easy for you to heal if you acknowledge where they're coming from in terms of your past, right? And once you've gone through that process and you've acknowledged how great you are for other people and how powerful you must be to make me, an experienced tarot reader and a person who's been doing augury since she was 5, cry in a reading for the first cry properly for the first time, then, you know, once and the music is joining me in this kind of, wow, fucking hell. This is a lot of power that you hold. This is a lot of mission that you have. So go forth and fucking do it, pile one. If you do want to book with me, as I said, links down below. If you particularly enjoyed this and you want to share in the comments or donate, those options are available to you. PayPal button is down in the description. But if you liked it and that's not your vibe at the moment, or you're short of cash, then please just like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. Share any of my readings with any friends who would like them, because I could do with being a bit more known on YouTube and elsewhere. This is only one of my platforms, but this is the one I want to grow fastest. So please do me a solid and pass this on, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Pile 2, if you picked the Maxfield Parrish playing card deck, this is your reading. I'm going to shuffle and speed up. Feel free to skip this portion if you want. Right, pile two. Many things to say. The first is that the song on at the moment is You've Been Flirting Again. That may resonate. If it's not a love connection though, don't worry, I've got you covered. I suspect for the vast majority this is, but it could be about something else as well, and we'll go into it. The other preliminary is that I'm really fucking sorry this happened to you. And I'm not just saying that, some of it hits home, quite honestly. And don't panic when you see the death card in the middle of the reading. Either if you're new to tarot and you think, oh God, is someone going to die? Or if you're not so new and you know that when we talk about death, we talk about letting something go gracefully. I do have a strong suspicion, spoiler alert, that the thing that will be let go of is indeed what you were competing for. Be that a person, a particular job, a place to be, a position in some other way, a set of friends, I don't know. It could be a lot of things for a lot of people because this is a general reading. So I'm reading for anywhere between 6, 7 and thousands of people, right? So I have to cover ground. But yes, there is a letting go, but we're going to look into it properly. And I think you're going to feel better about things at the end of this reading than you are going in. But just know that I feel your energy. I feel how exhausting this has been. I see in the cards how sabotaged you feel considering how much you have to offer the situation. And we'll deal with it, all right? We're in this together. Also, excuse my singed compañero over here. He was shedding when he was up here, so I put him down there, but it may just be an indication that for those of you who do cleanse via herb burning, etc., it would be a good thing to do that during the reading, before the reading, or sort of around now, depending on when you can get to this. Okay, let's open by using the book. I don't normally do that, but with this Fairies Oracle, the Brian Frau, Jessica Macbeth one, the book is fantastic, so we're going to go through what is this death card, and we'll start there. Also, the name Isabel may be significant because that's the song that's just come on. Natural timely endings, release, liberation. Scary, eh? Before you panic, let's remember that if it were not for death and her hard work, we would be up to our ears in alligators, mayflies, each other, and just about everything else. Without her to clear the world, there would be no room for growth or new life. This applies to all the realms, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and other. The death card in all oracles, fairy, tarot, and other, does not usually signify actual physical death. In fact, this is rarely the meaning. Rather, it indicates a significant change, one that involves letting go of the old life in order to move forward into the new. What we really fear about death is the unknown, the what next of it all. We may be experiencing great pain as a result of holding on to aspects of life that we've outgrown, but humans tend to hold on anyway because we don't know what's next. We want guarantees, and instead we get open doors into unknown, darkened spaces. Yet when we go through these doors, closing them behind us, we discover a whole new world, one in which we can grow and develop into more of what we have the potential of being. So here we see Death, her face hidden, without form, holding a dark crystal ball. Obsidian, for those of you who were thinking about working with it. I just got that heads up. There's a lot of linking between these and the H's 4 reading that I just did, but obsidian's a thing. Some things reached a natural ending, and there's substantial and irrevocable change in the works. This change may be inner or outer, or most likely both. It's timely and natural, but there may be much resistance to it, and or to this reading. Please hear me out for the duration. Leaves fall every autumn, and in the spring the trees are green again with new leaves. Make room for the new in your life. Let the old go, lovingly, gently, willingly. For those of you who are Northern Hemispheric and temperate, you are possibly seeing this live as we go into autumn. This is the autumn of this circumstance. This is when you allow it to change colour, appear even more beautiful in my opinion, and then fall away to make room for new things. But there is a period of wintry scariness between those things. And I think that's what we're going to grapple with today. That thing of, well, is nothing growing? I gave this up. What happens now? Right, so let's get to it. What is this situation? Well, you're in victim mode right now, and quite rightly, I think. This card of, I'm so fucking tired of being cheated on, is not necessarily a sexual thing, but it can be that for many of you, you've literally been cheated on time and time again, and this is something that's coming up again for you in this current situation, and you're fucking sick of it, and I'm so sorry, because that used to be me as well. And this, you are fascinating, I want to know all about you, is both how you feel about the other people in the situation, and, surprisingly, how they feel about you. But whether or not they have the adulthood, the maturity, that's the word I'm looking for, to act that way, be that a third party, person you're interested in or other, is kind of up for grabs at the minute. So just know that you are fascinating to others. It's not for lack of anything in you that this has been going on, but we get that you're tired. If it's not a love situation, this is just a scenario where, personally or professionally, you feel like you've been screwed over again and again. You feel like you've been fucked over. You feel like other people have had the advantageous position before you in sequence after sequence of events. And you're exhausted now, and you're coming to this because you're like, well, what is my difference from anything else? What is my advantage? Because right now, all I see is someone who's very tired. But again, know that you are fascinating to others, know that you are intriguing, and that is the first asset that we're being called to talk about. And that what scares you and what upsets you for the moment will, I'm not going to say it will be your greatest gift or anything like that, because fucking hell. But what I will say is that in the next stage, it will be the thing that is most beneficial to movement forward, right? I'm also going to take a break to have some water. I think you should too. Right, I'm back. Okay, several things. This song, Isabel, you may feel like you're married to yourself at the moment. You may have a fear around being single or around doing something on your own. I did speak actually in the latter portion of the last reading, if you can sort of find where it is, about the idea of being solitary as being a terrifying thing. But actually it's only when you get into the energy of being able to be solitary that you attract in the correct connections for where you're at. And until that point where you're kind of striving for somebody to fill the gap in terms of relationships or even in terms of professional alliances, it's always like they always fall a little bit short, you know? Or when you're desperate for friends, the friends that you make most immediately can sometimes be shady characters, etc., right? So there's a need to address that impression of lack within yourself and possibly, maybe, which is the current song, do some self-concept work. My self-concept reading, which is free on this channel, may be for you, or you can book one if you want something more personalised. But I think that listening to like self-concept affirmations and stuff, if you vibe with that and if you're not turned off by affirmations, would be a good thing. When we talk about making friends and shady characters and stuff coming in as well, I just got my water to drink in a mug, which is from Luke's coffee shop, i.e. a Gilmore Girls thing. But the names Luke and Isabel remind me of a particular situation that I was in, where I attracted a person who was extremely toxic, ruined my life for a few years, because of their impression of me as a third-party energy. And children were involved in that, right? So for some of you, this is your confirmation that if kids are involved and if this is a relationship reading, like take heed, right? This is for you. But if not, the name Luke may just be relevant in terms of like a colleague or a friend or something alongside that other name. Right, let's get into it properly, shall we? The victim archetype over here prevents you from letting yourself be victimised or victimising others. So when you see people mouthing off online about all men or about or anything actually, just about the way the world is, about capitalism, about individual bosses, about the way that finances are set up, about, I don't know, when you find friends, when you don't, whether people will betray you, etc., etc. All these kinds of victim-based beliefs, and then rallying speeches about how you can band together against certain kinds of people or circumstances. That person is in the light attribute of victim mode, possibly in the shadow as well, but generally speaking, their aim in that exercise is to prevent themselves and others from being victimised any further. For some of you, I know I mentioned a twin flame thing, and it does come up elsewhere, right? So this is really hitting home for many of you, but know the difference between a twin flame dynamic and an abusive one, because we use that label so often to cover the fact that a partner is not reciprocal or that they're downright mean, and that they know what they're doing and they know they can get away with it. That's not love, my dudes. Watch just the intro to my Your Future Spouse, What You'll Fucking Hate About Them reading, if you're in confusion about what I mean there with the twin flame thing versus the reality. Because just that 5 minutes or so of me talking may clear it up a little bit. But there is a sense of victimisation from another person here, whether or not it's romantic, and a sense that you are stepping into the light of the victim attribute to protect yourself and maybe to protect a third party from someone shitty or from someone who is willing to engage with third parties at all, which, by the way, there's no excuse for. If it's not a relationship thing, this is you just getting into that mode where you're willing to loudly complain about something and say, hey, I'm fucking tired, I've had a shit time, in order for people to go, oh, okay, I know not to hurt you in future, right? Or that's the perception that you're having. But unfortunately, in the shadow attribute, playing the victim can be for positive feedback in the form of pity and inability to maintain personal boundaries. So we also have someone who kind of needs the assurance of other people saying, oh man, that's so awful, I'm so sorry about what happened to you, in order to get ahead. And where you're in a competitive dynamic with someone or something else, playing the victim sort of immediately takes you down a notch from wherever they're at, right? Because it looks like you're in less of a privileged position, less of an advantageous position, or that you're turning on the violins in order to get promoted in some cases. I know that's not a great thing to hear, but it's something I feel I must share with you. So for some of you, it will hit home, right? Don't use the story of how you were victimised in the past to propel yourself to the next level, especially professionally. It's not going to work for you, right? Particularly because there's a whiff of somebody in the third party or in the competition for the same position or job or friendship or whatever, being friends with your friends or desiring to be in a way that might mean that they can paint you as someone who always plays the victim, okay? I'm not saying that's definitely their intention, but I'm saying that if you play the violin for too long, this is something that people can say about you, right? And indeed in the situation that I was referencing before, which was sort of very harrowing and went on for years, there was a feeling with me that I almost played the violin about it long enough that I forgot to just fucking live my life and missed that this person actually didn't really have much relevance to me. Beyond safeguarding a couple of kids, they didn't have any control over my life. It took me years to fucking realise that because of the petty bullshit that they were up to. And if you're in a dynamic like that, I want to say, look at where you're feeling genuine emotion that needs to be expressed and released from the body and, you know, all these healthy things so you can move on, versus a cycle where you're telling the same story about your situation over and over in order to elicit a response from others that you think is advantageous, because it actually won't be. It'll keep you stuck. In my case, it kept me in the same city and I had a stroke. So ye be warned, right? It's not going to get that extreme for most of you. I don't want to breed fear. I'm just saying that when you get into stagnancy and victimization as a habit, shitty things can happen to your holistic system. You can be sending yourself messages about what you're capable of that are very damaging for a number of years. Also, with this inability to maintain personal boundaries, it might be that some of this dynamic is about somebody asking you to do too much, whether it be colleagues or friends or your kids or whatever, and you saying, yes, of course, boo-boo, I'll do anything for you, in order to get ahead, but then later having to come into that victim mode and say, it wasn't cool that they took advantage of my ability to be there for them, because you kind of used more energy than you had. And there's a call out here. Both of these ends of the pile so far have been a call out, which is interesting because it is, you know, readings other than that are quite positive. But there's a need to acknowledge that perhaps part of the reason you've been shouting about this is because there is an aspect of you that has let it happen. And if you're in a truly abusive dynamic, emotionally or physically, get the fuck out, right? Don't let it continue. Find a safe place. Google some contact numbers of places that you can go, people you can turn to, etc. I'm not going to link them because this audience is worldwide and it won't be relevant to everybody if I do. But you know the kinds of things that you're probably going to need, right? Whether it's a couch to sleep on or actively like a shelter and a change of name. Get the fuck out, right? If it's something like that, don't even watch the rest of the reading, just act on it. This is always my like preliminary warning to anybody in an abuse dynamic. There is, which reading was it? There's another of my free readings, and I remember that it was the pile that used the black and gold Smith Waite, where we talk about escaping an abuse dynamic as well. It might be the self-concept, but check it out if that resonates. You'll be able to see at the beginnings of readings what piles are what, so you'll know. I think I've only used that particular deck in 2 readings so far, so you'll know it's for you because it comes before this one. Okay, anyway, your statement that you're making about this whole dynamic, whatever it is I'm legit terrified of you, that's why. So this can be being terrified of a partner or a third party. Someone I think who is rude, because I noticed that as I was meditating on this, I called myself names that I don't usually call myself. I was really harsh and frankly fucking rude to myself. So I get the sense that somebody in this, somewhere, is being fucking rude. And you find their aggression a little bit scary. But also in a broader sense, you're terrified of what could happen in both directions of this, honestly, in both outcomes. If you compete against other people and you get the job, or you get the position in a desired school, or you have the relationship or whatever, you're kind of scared of where that will take you. Like, will things be harder from that vantage point? Will it make you happy, or will it just leave you feeling the same? Will you run into the same kinds of problems again? And then if you don't get it, that's kind of equally terrifying, because if you're looking at a relationship, you're going to have to be on your own, and you possibly don't like that. If you're looking at a friendship, it's like, well, who am I without this person? How do I reorganize my life without triangulations from them if I need to leave a dynamic? Or indeed in a work situation, it's if I don't get this fucking job, or if I don't get into this school, what becomes of me, you know? These are all legitimate anxieties and concerns, but I want to acknowledge before we set off that you're feeling them, and that's why this death card and these two here are so fucking scary. Because if I'm even vaguely insinuating that you're going to have to let go of a bunch of stuff, you know what I mean already, and you don't want to do it. And you might even be a little averse to me as a result. That's okay. I can play bad cop. Not everybody vibes with my readings, but if it's less that you're not vibing and more that you're just finding me irritating, but the content true, then I would urge you to stick with it, because it can be a reflection of this being terrified of what I'm about to say, right? So in the sort of opposite thing, dealing with either the person or people that you're competing with, or in some cases a third party, the energy that they're carrying is the codependent. This deck is wonderful in that it lets you add a few cards for archetypes that have popped up for you again and again in life. And that's why it doesn't look like the rest of the deck, but it's just as relevant, I assure you. So in the light, this person or people have the ability to truly listen to and work with others, skill in service and caring for the needs and values of another person, including romantically or sexually, knack for transcending selfishness and the ego, and for putting others first. But the shadow of this person or people that you're competing with, that I suspect you've seen more of than the light, is seeking advice and consultation from others to define the self, a lack of self-reliance and intuitive self-trust, risking or attracting toxicity in order to be supported. So this is the kind of person who would get into an unhealthy relationship dynamic just to be seen. This is, for some of you, a quote-unquote pick-me, a pick-me-sha, if you like. Or this is somebody who is willing to diffuse their own boundaries and placate another person in order to receive some kind of acknowledgement. And that may be in business, where they go the extra mile. It may be in extracurriculars, where they're willing to wear themselves out in ways that you're not. Or, like I say, it may be interpersonally, where they'll bend over backwards for others. But it's actually out of a need and a fear of being left to themselves, because let's not forget that the opposite of the codependent is the independent, which mirrors you already. So you're not just mirroring your person in a perceived twin flame dynamic, you're mirroring your competition. You're legit terrified of this situation and of this person. They may be terrified of it too, and of you, because they're scared of not getting the job or ending up on their own, or of not having that particular friendship. So that's something to bear in mind when we're getting into this competitive streak that I said in the intro and sort of I'm not 100% vibing with, right? Then for their message to you, rather than your message across that way, we've got, your friends are great, can we share? Now, you may have heard me making gagging noises or like chuckling to myself in the shuffle, because it just, that energy, I fucking hate it. I'm actually experiencing a bit of this at the moment myself, so this message is partly for me. But this is a person who is willing to befriend your friends, or work around your professional network, or indeed take on some of your qualities to be in a relationship with someone, in order to kind of share whatever it is that they perceive you have. A person, a stature, a reputation, a professional dynamic, you name it, it could be that, because this is, again, a general reading. But it's like this person is looking over at you and where you stand and going, oh, cool, well, I'm codependent, so I'm going to take a little bit of this thing about you and a little bit of that thing about you and talk to this person that I saw you talking to and pretend that I'm into this thing that you're into. And it's really like, it made me gag in the shuffle, or mock gag, because A, it's familiar, and B, it's like no, you can't fucking share, right? And this is partly why you're a little bit creeped out by this person. There's a bit of a single white female dynamic going on here, a bit of a stalky You on Netflix energy, right? It's a bit, okay, but why are you so fucking interested in me? Like, and no, we can't share. Like, get your own personality, get your own persona, get your own business ideas, get your own family, you know, whatever it is. It's like, you do you, because this pretending to be me is not working. And this is extremely shadow self. I'm pretty ashamed to share this, but I'm going to, because some of you will vibe with it and it will make you feel better. And I know that you feel crap right now. But there is an extremely shadowy meme that I saw the other day of a beautiful version of Princess Jasmine looking at a really ugly version of Princess Jasmine. And the caption is something like, why you gotta do everything that I'm doing but in ugly? And it did make me laugh and it did make me feel better. But I hasten to add, it's not a very spiritual perspective, right? It's just that it's relevant at the moment because this third party, if it is a third party, or this person that you're competing with professionally or whatever it is, they may not have the physical beauty or indeed the perceived beauty in terms of personality, interests, etc. that you have. So immediately before we get into the playing cards, we're getting that one of your assets is that you can express beauty to whoever it is that you're aiming for. The song Hunter has just come on, the Bjork version, not the 30 Seconds to Mars version. Sorry, I really needed to say that. And there's a sense of like, you can be the hunter. You can look at what it is that you're honing in on. Some of you may be into glamour magic or social engineering because you have the capacity interpersonally and professionally to look at a thing that you want and make it want you without changing yourself, without doing the codependent thing of bending over backwards to be a different personality or dye your hair like this person or pretend to be interested in this thing. You can see what it is that people seek and tap into the aspect of yourself that responds to that, right? And it's not faking it because this quality is within you, but it's frustrating for other people because they see you as so chameleonic and so adaptive that it's almost like they want to imagine that you are codependent. They want to imagine that you're doing the same thing as them, where you just make up that you're into some shit to impress somebody, or you bend over backwards in order to overcompensate. But I get you're not actually doing that. You're being the hunter. You're going, what is it within you that is mirrored in me? And how can I be completely fabulous in that aspect for a minute so that you will notice me and, you know, potentially ask me out or give me a promotion or whatever it is. The interesting thing about that mirroring dynamic as well, though, is that it flips the other way, and that in your inability to maintain boundaries that we talked about, you are also behaving with some of the codependent shadow aspects. So you might not be codependent, but you sometimes have some of the boundaries in terms of your time, energy, and investment in other people that are easily described as codependent behaviours, simply because you have this fear of being left on your own or of not getting to the next stage within this situation. I think probably the distinction, other than you kind of not copying anyone else, is that this person is willing to do this in all areas. They're willing to diffuse their boundaries with absolutely fucking everything. And if so, they deserve our pity, not our condemnation, right? But they're not, it's like you're doing the same thing, but only in this dynamic, only with this third party, or this job, or this family situation, or this friendship, right? So yeah, that's something to sort of set the scene. If we look into the cards that are telling us more about the situation, we've got the Ace of Swords, the Two of Pentacles, and the Five of Cups. So I love this deck, but I really hate this particular Ace of Swords. I feel like this person in the sun or the moon here is laughing at these children, like mocking them or bullying them. I think it did come up in another reading with the bully archetype, actually, for something else, but I get that vibe off it, if I'm honest. It's probably not meant to depict that at all, but there is a need to acknowledge that somebody in this is playing people off against each other. It might be your direct perceived rival. It might even be the person that you want a relationship or a promotion with. So your supposed twin flame or your boss. Notice that I didn't say that this is a twin flame dynamic. I said that it's a perceived twin flame. So for those of you familiar with the concept of a false twin, listen up, right? Again, you may not like me, but the reading is for you. So this can be, if there is a literal cheating dynamic and somebody who's willing to be a pick-me, especially sexually, for somebody who's used to having multiple partners and cheating on people or acting disingenuously, it can be that that person that you're kind of after, that you want to impress, that you feel victimized by, is the person playing everyone off against each other. And actually, this codependent pick-me person over here is not so bad, right? They may be imitating you, they may be tiresome, they may have some strengths that you feel you can't compete with, that you find very threatening, right? Or they may have just been chosen by a person that you feel very entitled to or possessive over. Watch that, by the way, because it's not love, right? Entitlement and love are not the same. Again, with the intro to your future spouse reading. Anyway, there is a strong sense that somebody, and for many of you, your person, in quote marks, because no one owns anyone, is the person sort of making this more uncomfortable for these poor children over here in the moonlight, right? And then with the literal tarot interpretation of the Ace of Swords, this is a truth coming to light. So it might be that through this reading or through recent circumstance, I suspect it's the latter, you have come to an awareness that there's more going on than meets the eye, that there's shifty bullshit happening on all sides, that perhaps there is an insincere interviewing process going down, or a bit of favouritism, or a bit of playing you off against somebody via triangulation in speech, or other kinds of emotional abusiveness. This is something that's just occurring to you, and it's making you feel more victimised than ever, which is why I said at the beginning that I'm really sorry this has happened to you, because it is complex, and it's fucking hard to deal with and face up to. And it involves forgiveness of people who haven't acted well, and forgiveness of people for whom, in another circumstance, I feel like you'd be friends. Like, weird as it is, I'll get to that. Yeah, you're in a state of emergency, like the song is saying, right? Excuse me, I'm gonna be lazy and just sort of point from my chaise longue type situation. Maybe a point, if this is really heavy, to lie down or get into a more reclined position or stop working out or whatever you do while you're watching readings. But yeah, anyway. So Two of Pentacles, this is literally being juggled, right? So again, if it isn't a love situation, you're not being cheated on, or you're not dealing with somebody who has 10 million Instagram DMs and or Snapchats with people they'd like to fuck at any given moment, then you're in a dynamic where somebody's playing you off against the competition and it's making you feel more insecure than the situation would normally warrant. The visuals for this make me think of somebody who's on holiday, perhaps in the Mediterranean, but it doesn't have to be, and is sort of looking at the play of colours and light on things and thinking about this. For many of you, I sense this is you, and that actually a lot of this came to light while you were away on like a vacation over the summer, if you're seeing it live, or just on like a break from communication with all involved, where you got to think about it and you sort of went, fuck, are they like making us compete? Or is this like a thing where I would normally be winning in this and something shady's going down, right? So that's additional context to say this is your pile if that's you. And then with the Five of Cups, like, it's the grief card. It's the beginning of the death movement. It's letting go of something which has been incredibly hurtful and draining to you. But it's also the focus on your part, on what you've lost rather than what there is to gain. In the Rider-Waite tarot version of this card, there would be a person looking at a bunch of fallen cups, not noticing that there are cups behind them, still containing liquid, still standing up, that they could pick up and take on their way, right? But they're grieving what was spilled, if you like. I'm getting the album Jellyfish Spilt Milk for some of you. It's fantastic. Go listen to it. I don't give a shit what your preferred genre is. It's the kind of power pop that can make anyone happy. But anyway, so you're crying over your spilt milk. Fair enough, but you're also not seeing the advantage of the situation. And in this particular card, interestingly, the advantage is that these two people are mirrored exactly in a mundane space, like a kitchen looking kind of space. So this is, you are not seeing your mirror, and that's why you're sad. Whether your mirror is the person or situation that you're competing for, or the person or situation you're competing with, right? Again, with the fact that this reading mirrored itself with clarifiers, these two cards aren't meant to be here. And also that twin flame dynamics, false twin flames, even like codependent dynamics tend to be mirrors for each other. Strong mirror energy in this, right? I'm pulled to say also that if you want to vibe with this death energy, but you're not yet ready to unravel a connection or move on. And unravel has come on as I've said that. It would be very healing for you, and just entertaining because it's great, to watch I think it's the 5th or 6th episode of the Sandman televisation that's gone on Netflix recently. Obviously go to the comics if you have access. It's always better reading the graphic novels of a thing. But it's a great, concise episode. I think it's called The Sound of Her Wings. About death as like a mythological figure and how hard it is for her to do her job. And I thought of this when I read your fairy card interpretation, because it referred to death as her. And in my understanding, my particular spiritual leanings, death is a woman. Death is the same energy that creates life also takes it, right? That makes sense. But also, whenever in popular culture I hear death referred to as a she, when we normally think male and Grim Reaper, I always think of the Sandman and what a sort of tragicomic and beautiful character death is, and how some of the stuff that she says in that episode could really resonate with your situation and with the process of letting go. There's a particular line that I felt immensely triggered by until my 30s, but also low-key loved. I'm just going to tell you, like, it's not a massive spoiler if you watch the episode or read it, but this anecdote seems relevant, right? So, Death is out there doing her thing where she takes people away to the sunless lands. She meets a guy on a beach with his family, and he recognises that she is Death and doesn't want to leave. He's young, it's before his time kind of thing. He's got 2 young kids and a wife there, if I remember rightly. And he's pleading with her, please just let me go and say something to my wife before I go. Let me have the last word in this. Let me prep them for my leaving. Don't come now. And, sorry, it's getting me choked up. It's so beautiful. She looks at him and she says something to the effect of, mate, you get what everybody gets. You get a lifetime. Right? It's not too soon for this thing to die off. It got the time that all other things get. And there's also a thing in that about, are you living to your fullest potential? And this is why I found it particularly triggering as a quote that I always remembered. Because part of me was in victim stance so much because of some medical things and some sort of social familial stuff, that I resented this idea that I got the same chance as everybody else got. I thought that I was in a position of comparative lack of privilege, and that it wasn't fair to say to me, you can do the same things as anybody else, because I hadn't started from the same vantage point. But the message of death in its sort of extended thing, and it's coming up with this grief here, is that in a way we do all get the same advantages, right? Whether or not our backgrounds, our bodies, the colour of our skin, our financial situations, etc. are disadvantageous in a world that can be quite stark, shall we say. Those disadvantages, using the right mindset and using the right progression and spiritual development, can actually be twisted into your advantage. And this is something that will leave many of you cold. You don't want to hear it right now. Leave you cold. What a pun. Didn't intend for that one, but it works. But yeah, this idea that, like, what has hurt you most could be twisted into your greatest strength. And I don't mean by telling victim story. It really slices in, but it's also something that can be incredibly healing and can lift someone out of 5 of Cups energy before we start. So if you've been feeling in a state of grief about a kind of ending that you know might be coming because someone's cheated on you, or they've settled with someone else, or you feel that someone else will get the job, or, you know, other, please specify, this is time to say you got what everybody got in that situation. And perhaps if it's not happening for you, it's because it wasn't for you. And moreover, perhaps it's not happening for you because you needed to see the wisdom of it in order to get the best possible outcome for yourself the next time that you go around this merry-go-round, right? In death, this would be a reincarnation concept. In life, this is thinking about the ways that you do mirror people in the situation and ways that you maybe did let yourself down, or you did play up or play down your strengths or weaknesses, and say, right, the next time this fucking happens, I'm ready. So that you don't have to say, I'm tired. You don't have to say, everyone cheats on me. You don't have to say, all men, all women, all white people, all rich people are like this. And you can instead come to it and say, I was at a disadvantage here, but I learned also that I put myself at further disadvantage through the way that I responded. And the next time it happens, you can be sure as shit that I won't, and I'll grab every second and I'll make the best of it. And if it's not for me, I'll have faith that something else is, right? I'm sorry this is so heavy, but wow. Intense reading, intense song. Let's move to the differences in yourself that you do know about, that we're conscious of. So, similar to the self-concept reading, but also slightly different, we're just going to talk about what your strengths are in the context of the competition. So we got 3 of clubs, 10 of clubs, and the King of Swords. So we're looking, without looking at the imagery, at you're very good at kind of expansiveness. You might be quite well travelled with this holiday reference as well. You might be quite worldly in a way that this other person or other people are not. And you can bring that to your game, professionally, sexually, whatever, right? You've been around in some fashion, not shaming, because this is in your positive attributes. And you can bring that to the situation and say, hey, when I was in Bali, I learned about this thing and we could use it for this project. Or, you know, in a non-verbal way, you could think, when I was in this connection with somebody and I fucked them like this happened. Or you can say, you know, my friend in a different paradigm who lives over here outside of this belief system approaches this thing like this, so maybe I can bring that to the group or to the friend or whatever. You're very adept at doing that, and you have a good kind of, I'm hearing Akashic Records, but you have a good bank of information from which to draw to inform a situation and improve your status, right? And in the end, competition tends to be about status, whether or not we like to admit it. It's about what can I get for myself by potentially doing better than someone or something else. We're also talking about the fact, as with the first reading, that you have a decent legacy behind you. You're potentially financially a bit better off than the personal people competing with you. You're certainly more like secure in your domain, in your realm, which could be your area of like passion and interest, or it could be literally your home or your country at the moment. There is a strong link to environment even with the imagery here, and also with imagination. So for those of you who vibed when I said Akashic Records, it's like you're very used to tapping into the resources of others symbolically, your own resources, interpretatively, looking at cloud busting, etc., maybe the song, mythology. You know, you're good at drawing on the wisdom of other people in a way that makes you come across as very secure. And I don't feel that anybody you're competing with at the moment has that to them in quite the same way. And then there's also, with the King of Swords, a sense of truth and directness to you, a sense of cutting straight through the bullshit and to the stuff that's important. Again, I'm reading this in a third-party thing as like sexually, you may be very good at like cutting the crap and just getting down to it. You may be very seductive, very good at attracting someone quickly, or getting very quickly within, you know, God, I nearly said sexual congress, which is what Spirit was saying to me, but it just shows there's people older than us involved in this, right? But I would not use that term. But when you're getting jiggy, right, you can be very good at skipping to the bit that will get your partner off in a way that for no amount of pick-me-sha behaviour, this other person has not yet mastered, right? So you may be someone who is not learning from things like porn in the same way that a pick-me would, but is just very adept sexually, very like good at at getting to it and learning very quickly from a partner what it is that they're responsive to. So that's advantageous if you need it. Obviously, if this is a career reading, sorry for the squeaky chair, that won't apply to you. But if that is the case, then this Swordsy King energy and the imagery could be that you're very good at getting to the facts of things in a crisis situation. So I'm seeing this fire as like, oh shit, the house, the shelter is on fire, what do we do? And every fucker else is panicking. And you're the person who can be very good at thinking methodically through something, right? Using your dearth of experience and, sorry, your wealth of experience and sort of saying, right, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to do it, let's Winston Wolf the fuck out of this. Anything extra from the imagery of the cards? For this one, I'm seeing that sometimes this, like, as much as you're very well travelled, literally or sort of mentally, this can sometimes lead to an element of loneliness for you. And this can be part of this fear of like, I don't want to do this on my own. I'm terrified of how this will go. Because this child looks really lonely and they're kind of in the lake on their own, no boats around. They're left on their own to navigate emotional waters, right? To look at their own reflection and think about what it is that they did. There's almost this feeling of like, when you're alone, you're having emotional flashbacks to the naughty step, which for some of you will be true, either from a childhood thing or from an abuse dynamic more recently. But I want you to know that this sense of like, I can bring my wealth of experience and travel to this isn't because you're a solitary traveller. It's just because you understand things very well from that travel. And I don't want you to have this impression that you'll always be on your own. This was in Pile 1 as well. Like, don't fear solitude and interpret it as loneliness, because they're not the fucking same thing. And being able to embrace solitude when you're in new environments is actually what makes you analytically very useful to other people, and your experience very valuable in a way that this other person or people just cannot fucking compete with, my dude. Even if they tried, even if they faked it, no matter how much they copy you, no matter how much they try and start up shit with your friends, they will not be able to mimic your experience, your life experience, right? And the clarifier for this last one was the Two of Cups as well. So again, with a card that depicts mirroring and interpreting the mirror, you're somebody who can perhaps detach enough from this reading emotionally to see what I'm saying within it, which is great. But you can sort of be objective about a situation. And also, this being useful in a crisis, if this is a partnership or a friendship, like a two-person, excuse me, sorry, hiccups for confirmation. If this is like a two-person dynamic with a third wheel coming in and trying to start shit, a vine, if you were in the H's for reading, then just know that there is this Two of Cups understanding between you, either a really solid friendship to begin from, or a kind of connection and mode of communication between you that this other person isn't able to navigate with the best will in the world and all the skills they have. I'm being pulled to something in my own circumstances here where, for some of you, if this is a relationship situation, there is a covert method of communication between a person who is very single and a person who fluctuates between being very single and very not. And try as they might, the other party or other parties in this situation cannot pick up on this method of communication entirely because it's like by covert means. It's on an app that no one else has. It's in code for some of you. It's in like, it's just unwritten in a way. And I don't mean that thing of like, oh, we're so sexually connected, we're made for each other, our communication is unwritten. I just have to look at my partner and they understand me. Because frankly, if that were the case, they wouldn't be fucking cheating on you. But it's something where a third wheel or a third party can't tap in directly to the way that you understand each other. And the other sort of possibility for this in combination is that whether it's a relationship or not, your ability to communicate very well with this person on a quite an intimate level, and I don't just mean sexual intimacy, I mean like understanding each other, has enabled you to take them out of a crisis really well, right? They may have had a bonfire to put out, and you were the thing that swept in and kind of saved them from it by saying, hey, dude, I understand the way you think, and have you looked at it this way, or have you tried this thing? And they will forever be grateful to you for that, whether or not they have had the maturity to thank you thus far, okay? So that also is a bit of an edge on the competition that I think you're consciously aware of. Moving over here to the stuff that you're not as consciously aware of, but that is a differentiation about you, that can give you kind of the upper hand in this situation. We've got a King of Diamonds, an Ace of Hearts, and a Seven of Clubs. So firstly, we're looking at you having quite a strong foundation, whether or not you feel that you have. With the literal depiction on this card, I'm seeing like a barley fort or a pillow fort. Again, sorry about the chair. For some of you, you may be listening to this reading in a pillow fort, feeling extremely depressed, under a pile of cushions, thinking, but I have nothing established to my name and this other person does, or I haven't built my empire and these other people have, or whatever it is. This card is showing up to tell you that that's not the fucking case at all. Even if all you have in the physical is a pillow fort, let me tell you that what you've established in terms of your understanding of practicality and materiality is very substantial, and it is substantial enough for you to be worthy of this position that you currently seek. Whether or not it's suited to you is different from whether you're worthy for it, but let's move on, right? So then with the Ace of Cups or Hearts, we've got an offering of love. This is in a connection, you have a lot to give. Oh, fuck me. Sorry. I didn't realise before it finishes that the song that's on is 5 years. This has been a very important song for me in relationships, but just to have a brief intermission to resonate with some of you, go listen to it. The lyrics are about like somebody fucking somebody else over and regretting it 5 years on. And this person's saying, you know what, in 5 years you're going to be nothing. I really feel like this could be relevant to the dynamic here. Please go check out 5 Years by Bjork. Anyway, right, going to the Ace of Cups. You have so much to offer somebody in a connection, in a friendship, in a job, as a student, as a support worker for some of you, as whatever it is that you want to go for, that you feel slightly competitive about. And then with the Seven of Wands, there's also a sense of having the upper hand in a situation and being able to discuss things in a very high ground way without being on a high horse, right? These two people are deep in conversation. The coloration of the card is very air, very communicative, lots of yellows, lots of blues, very mercurial in the sense of expressing a truth, you know, expressing swords energy again, where it was over here. So you can very clearly communicate to somebody who's perhaps not with the same value system or in the same boat as you, maybe even to the opposition, despite having a kind of moral high ground. And you don't let yourself be pulled down by fuckery in the behaviour of other people, right? And this is, if it's a professional thing, it's been noticed, it's been acknowledged, because somebody else going for this is not so good in that aspect. They let themselves fly off the handle. And if it's in a relationship dynamic, I actually feel, and I mentioned this earlier, but this is the card for it. This codependent third party, I feel you would be friends with if it weren't for the fact that you were competing with them. I think you'd probably really get on. And you may cross and spit when I say that and say, no, we've got nothing in fucking common. I hate her or him or whoever, them, you know, but actually there's something there, right? And part of the reason they're drawn to your friends, your behaviours, is not just to get at like your person, again, dangerous terminology, but it's to sort of get to you. It's to sort of learn more about you, because if all was made equal, you'd be mates. You'd have a lot to learn from each other. Or you'd be in the same professional network in a way that was useful to both. Or, you know, you fill in the blank, right? But this person is someone you could have a good chat with, as depicted on the card. And that would not be a harmful or competitive or shady chat. We're not in this drag mode of, oh, let's find the tea on this person, or all that shadowy bullshit that shows that we're very low vibration. We're talking a genuine conversation where you're coming to each other from differing perspectives, but you're actually learning from one another and actually finding stuff in common and having a really good dialogue. So there's something to this, that this is why it's what you're not seeing, right? Because it may be that in viewing them as your mirror, yes, you're seeing the negative things that you do that they also do, the pick-me behaviours, but you're also seeing some of the positives that are untapped within yourself that they carry. Again, if you want to use my Mirrored Souls reading to check out a dynamic with somebody, it's designed for twin flames, but it can be used for frenemies, adversarial relationships, competition, etc. There will be a free pick a card mini version of it going out soon, like within the month. But also you can book that with me privately down below if you want to get something more honed to your situation. Particularly if there's a third party, we can sort of check in on what's happening romantically. But anyway, it might be for you, it might not be, but I feel called to mention it. The other thing with this Ace of Cups energy of like you being really great for somebody, having a lot to offer them, is that it depicts Puss in Boots coming to this king, right? Puss in Boots is a magical figure. It's also an animalistic figure. So if we're talking about a relationship or a friendship, you can bring in an air of magic and wonder that anybody else in this situation would not be capable of, because they're not you, and you carry it. You are covered in glitter. Glitter runs through your veins, right? And you may not see it consciously about yourself because you're used to having to deal with the mundane and having to be there for other people and stuff, and it's sort of like, I don't know, sometimes as well you're so creative and so vivid as a person that you don't see that you're like that because you just assume everyone else is. I know there's a key connection in my life that I actually think is a twin flame dynamic, that this person, if you told them how fucking magical they are, they'd scoff, but they've before told me how magical I am, and I'm like, dude, this is a mirror. Like, are you not seeing that you're like some fairy tale dreamboat character come to life, and that everybody your life touches gets a bit sparklier for having known you, gets a bit more in their purpose? Even if they end up not liking you, you like shuttle them off onto their fucking trajectory just by being around. And I get the same vibe with you as that person, where like, if I'm saying you're really magical and wonderful, there's possibly a bit of you that's resistant to that, but it's very much true. And it can happen in an unconventional way, and that's why you don't see it, I think. It's just like by virtue of how you communicate and who you are. And again, with this person that it's reminding me of, it's like, this person isn't like that because they're trying to be kooky or because they're adding magical references to their conversations or any of this other kind of magical pick-me bullshit. They're not trying to do the manic pixie dream girl thing. They just are manic pixie vibe because they're so like unusual in their thinking, so Piscean, I dare say, for some of you, that their laughter at their own circumstances, of their own bizarre trains of thought, etc., are like massively infectious. So I think you might be like that, where you're a bit of an oddball, a bit of a dreamer, and it might be a quality that's been criticised for you or is frowned upon in your line of work or whatever, but it's something that you just carry wherever you are. You don't have to be in the situation of, oh, I'm going to explicitly do a magical or creative thing to be magical and creative and to have other people benefit from it and to have other people think about it years later as well. Because this is reminding me of a dynamic that's gone on for, you know, the sort of older end of approaching a decade. And it's like some of the stuff from way back when still sticks in my mind. And in the same way, you are highly memorable, and that's what's being called up for acknowledgement in this. You are strong in your foundation, you're highly memorable and magical, and you have the capacity to understand everybody in this situation from a very even and balanced place, even if you are feeling out of balance, which, fuck me, that's a rare quality. Like, speak to anybody and and you will realise how rare it is for somebody to be non-reactive in a situation that emotionally triggers them. Even if it's something we grow out of, it tends not to be something we graduate from until later life. So be proud of that, you know, take that forward. It's a good difference. Okay, now we're getting into why this fucking happened. You know what I'm going to say, right? If this is a connection, I don't actually think it's for you. I think this person couldn't play you off against other people if they were truly for you at the moment or for the moment. Maybe that eventually they come back around, so don't hate me. But right now, there is a death that needs to happen. And it's not with the competition, it's with the person causing you and the competition to fall out. If this is a girl versus girl thing, I want you to be reminded of like Riot Girl culture and the fact that it was always like girls to the front, girls back each other up no matter what, right? Whether we're heterosexual or not, we don't let somebody else in a third party get between women looking out for women. And I just feel called to say that because that's also a vibe of this card over here. But either way, it's like the person or people that you're seeing as competitive are not your competition. The song is reminding me they're your Pluto, right? They're your, in non-astrological language, they're the catalyst for your descent into something that you didn't want to explore so that you can come up renewed and more creative and vibrant and wonderful than ever. Pluto is like, I mean, it's related to Hades, which is death again, but a plutonic dynamic is one which takes you into the deep dark places within yourself that you didn't want to see, takes you into relationships and truths about these relationships that you didn't want to talk about, and makes you acknowledge the truth so that you're strengthened to be brought up to the light in a way that is all the more public than you ever were before, right? So if you're losing out on a relationship to get to another relationship later down the line, just know that it will be infinitely better than this cat, whoever they are. If you're losing a friendship, just know that there are connections out there for you that are so much more tailored to who you are that this will seem insignificant sooner or later. And if it's like a professional opportunity and you're missing out on it now, I think either you're not in the space where you're ready to take it on and do what it is you need to do with it fully at the moment. Maybe you do need to pillow fort for a bit instead of being so on the go professionally. Or if it's something that's more like you're literally applying for a job or a course or something and you get turned down, it's time to let it go because you weren't ready yet. And I say that with love. I'm hearing the screaming in the song as like you going, oh, everyone's telling me right timing and wait until I'm ready, and it's so frustrating. And I hate this bit of this song because it's meant to be frustrating, right? It's meant to be an ordeal. That's the point. It's kind of getting you doing the bit. But it's true, you're not ready for it. And that is because there is something coming that is better. The music resumes. That is more in your vibe. That is the Pluto graduated, right? That is Persephone having gone into the underworld and come back up again to create spring again with this fall spring thing, right? Wherever you are in the world, that might be a relevant dichotomy. And you've certainly picked a very outdoorsy deck. I dare say the most kind of tree-centered, even though there is a fairy deck involved. So yeah, it's like it's happening so that you can come up to the surface, right? So that you can go to the experience that's for you and not the one that's been placed in your path to fuck with you. And the next song about to happen is All Is Full of Love, right? This is a promise. It doesn't have to be a love situation, but what is coming up for you is going to be loving. It's going to be protective, safe. There's going to be no cheating or fuckery involved. You don't have to be terrified of it. It's not going to try and steal from you. It's not going to try and dissolve your boundaries, right? Because it's for you. This thing that you're dealing with right now, I'm really sorry, but it wasn't for you. And it's not ambiguous, right? This reading is not like, oh, but it could be maybe. Right now, right here, as you're hearing this, you need to let this shit go because it ain't yours. Maybe it's theirs, maybe it's not. Maybe you get to see somebody else get it. Maybe you just want to cut off from all of that and say, you know what, I'm so hurt, I don't want to watch you move on. Or I don't want to watch this person get this job. I want to find a different job or career altogether, right? That might be the catalyst that you need. But whatever it is, it's not for you, and what's coming next is full of love. So 6 of Clubs, we're talking about success, imminent success. This is the most optimistic card of the minor arcana, arguably. And it's here in a playing card, which is, playing cards are all minor arcana. So for this deck, this is like your best result. But you're not seeing it, the face is covered, right? You're also not seeing, with the face being covered, that this new and fantastic result is not necessarily connected to your identity or to your former identity. So if you were in a connection where there was a third party and it was very looks based, this is coming to tell you that you can be reliant on so much more than your physical beauty. And it's highlighting that to you by showing you 2 people who are fucking shallow for each other. My voice is cracking because, man, have I learned that one before, right? Whether or not you consider me to be vaguely attractive, I have learnt this the hard way, that some people will be drawn to each other in purely physical ways. And if that's all they see, and they don't value me as a person, then fuck them, right? And same to you. Not fuck you, but, this lesson is there again. Sorry, again with the chair. Of like, if they're being shallow, fuck them. Your former identity is not important. If this isn't relationships and it's something different with the identity thing, this might be that who you were branding yourself as, or who you were professionally, or whatever, is outmoded now. And the reason this dynamic came up is to show you that it's outmoded, and that you can be independent of what you formerly defined yourself as and go to a great deal of success in your future, right? Clear blue skies is what this person is facing. I'm hearing David Lynch in my head going, you swirl those numbers, clear blue skies and all that sort of crap that he does. So for some of you, you've been watching the Lynchian weather report, so have I, right? But it's just like a heads up to say, hey, we see you, this is for you. Don't tap out of the reading. Okay, so then Ace of Pentacles, which is a new financial or material offer. This could be a new fuck, honestly. It could be a new place to live, because this particular card is very place-based. It could be that in moving around all the time and being on constant holiday or constant work moving or travel or whatever, you will be finding home, whatever that means to you, as a result of this dynamic popping up. It could mean that you decide to stay in a certain place, maybe even to be close to somebody else who's on the horizon. Or it could be that you're just like feeling like you have a home, whether or not you're nomadic for the first time, right? It can be establishment in a new field as well, because new fields, new places of work, right? But it's to do with that sensation of like a new thing that's like an opportunity from without that you didn't see coming, that is your success because of the 6 with it, that gives you a place to be. And that can be a place to be as someone's partner, or it can be a new role to inhabit, or a literal place to be. For many of you, it's a literal place, right? You may have been moving around, or you may be thinking of moving and you don't know what the fuck this person's doing. For some of you, the H is for honour reading, may vibe, because that was about a relationship where you're talking about moving, but you don't know whether there's cheating involved and stuff. But there is a sense that like you will absolutely decide where to be once you get a sense of what this triplicate, this you, your goal and the competition has meant to you, and indeed how to manifest it. And with that, we've got the King of Cups energy coming up again. Second reading, this has popped up as an outcome. So this is you reaching a kind of emotional stability, self-reliance, not fear of solitude, as we discussed. Having power over people. This guy looks like he's a king or an emperor. I'm not sure which story it is. I'm hoping it's not the Emperor's New Clothes. But there's a sense of like being so sure of where you want to be emotionally that other people look to you for advice or look up to you. And it's not like that's what you're aiming for. You don't want to flex that people come to you. It's just that that's going to be a byproduct of how stable you feel. Because the King of Cups is a master over his emotional circumstances and that of others, right? And the song that's on is the overture, so it's like this sweeping summation of everything you've experienced being integrated into your emotional development. That is what an overture symbolizes to me. So that is what you're going to do, right? And then unusually for this reading, I didn't get a clarifier for that, which is what I thought this was and why I put it there in the sort of mirrored way. But we got a bit of advice for you, right? So other than drop this shit like it's hot, don't worry about the competition, they're probably a good person, and or this situation isn't really for you right now, we have a 2 of clubs. This is about expansion, about movement forward. This person is on a swing, so if you've been swinging from one thing to the other, from one relationship to the other, from one friendship to the other, if you've been switching up jobs a lot, or you've been sort of framing your your movement through things as like, I don't know whether to go to this place and move or not. And you're back and forth about where this is that you actually belong. This person on the swing is like steadying the swing with her foot. It's touching the edge of the card, it's grounding. The overture is reaching its crescendo, right? Very un-Bjork, but very appropriate for this reading. So it's like you're putting your foot down in every sense, and you're getting that stability so that you're not swinging from one concept to the other, one person from the other. Should I do this? Should I do that? It's almost like you've come out of a 2 of Swords kind of energy and into an energy of expansion and contemplation. And although there's an aspect to being rooted to the ground, it's to a ground which is firmly yours. And the bit that's sort of not grounded is that you're seeing that the situation was not for you, right? And it's very verdant, very sunny, very tranquil. So I think that whatever it is that you're settling on with these realizations and with the dropping of this connection for now and resolving yourself to let the 2 people play it out in whatever way is cool for them, because that's not up to you, you're kind of getting into a sanctuary space. You're building a safe place for yourself in a similar way to Power 1, where you can go to just figure out your next move. You're building your pillow fort, but in a bigger way, a broader way. And it's not in a sad girl or sad boy way anymore. It's in a sense of somewhere that is genuinely informative and protective. So I hope that resonated well for you, Pile 2. If you do want to book with me, the link's down below. If you found this really useful by itself and you want to donate, I'd really appreciate the cash. And there's a PayPal button just there as well. If you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine. But please like, subscribe, share with a friend if you want to see what pile they got. And return to any of my other readings as you see fit. But I do hope I see you again. And take care, put yourself first, and let what's dead die, right? Go and watch that Sandman episode. See you later.